Hello everybody and welcome to another Blender tutorial. My name is Vít Procházka and I would like to show you today how to make this palm leaf effect on our dancer. Well, I will show you two different methods how to achieve this. First will be kind of traditional one with using just Blender modifiers, and the second one will be using animation nodes and show you some of the pros and cons of that method. And this is pretty much all we will do. So how we will do it? First, we have to think about the physics simulation itself, and you probably think closed simulation or soft body physics when you see something like this. And I am pretty sure it would work perfectly with all this interaction between individual leaves and collision between them, so no intersection. But I'm also pretty sure that if I would try to make it even as closed simulation, my computer would just burn down. So I will try to approximate this physics by using hair dynamics, so just the particle physics, which should be much faster, but we are losing the collision between individual leaves. But because there is so many of them, I think that the final effect is still pretty convincing. Okay, so let's just jump right into Blender. In the description you can download this starting file, this source file, where is already our dancer and the animation on him, which is motion capture from mixamo.com. I already prepared the animation to be looped several times over, and because we need a physics simulation, then we need at least 2 loops of this animation. One loop is 75 frames, so we will just crank the end to 150. Well, I forgot to turn on screencast keys, so okay, now the screencast keys are on right here. So we have 2 animation loops. We are pretty much prepared for next step, which is same for both methods, modifiers and animation nodes, and that is the hair dynamics. So definitely we need hair, of course. So just jump to the particle settings, particle systems, add new one, set it to hair, and definitely check advanced, because pretty much 100% of time you want advanced settings for this. First thing that you notice is definitely too long hairs, so change the length to something like 0.32 or 0.3, something around that. It should look kind of pretty good. And I think 1000 particles is for this presentation just too much, so let's change it to 640. Emission from faces, okay, just use modifiers because we are after armature deform modifier. Well, what's next? Definitely hair dynamics, we need that because that's the whole reason we are doing this simulation. Stiffness should be higher because this won't be hairs but leaves, and some damping also. All those other things are okay. Just name the cache somehow, and start and end should be same as our animation, so from 1 to 150. What else? Velocity, we don't need to change it right now. Rotation physics, nothing from this. Only vertex groups. For now, the hairs are also in the joints and in the parts that intersect one another. I would like to control somehow where the hairs are placed. So if you jump to the edit mode, you can see some selection, or maybe not, it doesn't really matter. Here in the mesh properties there is many vertex groups. They are mainly for the rig, for the animation, but there is one named outside, and if you try to select it, you can see it's only vertices kind of facing outside without hands and feet. So this is for generating fur and hairs and some other particle systems that shouldn't be inside of these joints and intersecting the parts. Also, I would like the head to be clear from the leaves, so I will remove it from this group. So select anything on the head, Ctrl L to select the whole head, and just hit remove from the outside group, unselect all, select this group. You can see everything works as expected. So back to object mode and apply this vertex group for the placing of our hairs. So back to the particle system settings, and here find vertex groups, and density should be our outside. Now you can see hairs are placed only where this group was made, selected. Okay, and it's pretty much all settings for our hairs, for our particle system. I would like to place there just simple plane for floor, so the hairs will collide with the floor as well. For that I need to select the plane and activate the collision here, and it's pretty much all for this. So let's run the simulation. Let's see how it will work. It doesn't look too bad. I will stop it right now because I can see that the hairs are going through the mesh itself, this denser. So I will just duplicate this alpha surface. The other one doesn't need to have the particle system, of course, and I will set this to collision. So now it will collide with one another. Run the simulation again. It's much slower, as you can see, so I will let it run through the whole thing. Okay, it calculated the simulation, and now I will just select the alpha surface that has the particle system, go here to the cache and check current cache to bake. So from now on the particles stay with the movement, so it's baked on the individual strands. So I don't need this another alpha surface, so I just delete it, and I don't need a plane either. The particles will now move as they should. And it's pretty much all for the simulation. So this part of the tutorial is over, and let's move to another where we create just one leaf that we will later duplicate. This is also same for both methods, the modifiers and the animation nodes. So let's just in another layer create just one plane and shape it kind of like a leaf. It doesn't really matter. You can shape it as you want. Just remember you need some subdivisions in the positive y-axis, and the direction of the leaf will be from the beginning to the direction of positive y-axis on the particle. So keep that in mind and create the shape as you want. I will use proportional editing with sharp fall off to just create this kind of shape, and without the proportional editing, let's scale it even more. Let's scale the base a little bit, and I will apply later subdivision surface, so this will be rounded, and I want the base to be always on the surface of the denser. So I will just create one little segment here that will ensure that the leaf will be always inside of the denser. And it's pretty much all for the model. I would like to later apply some texture on it, so I will unwrap it right now. You unwrap. Let's split this window to see how it will be unwrapped. And I know that the image I will use is here. It's some leaf texture. It doesn't really have to be precise, at least for this presentation. So let's scale it roughly to the scale of the leaf, like this, and we are pretty much prepared. Another thing that I would like to add is some thickness, of course. So at Modifier solidify without offset, so it's applying the thickness to the both sides at once, and something really thin, so 3 millimeters I think should be enough. And then of course subdivision surface, because we want it to be smoother. When I'm talking about it, apply the smooth shading to the leaf and name it leaf. Well, and it's pretty much, we are done with the creation of the leaf. We have the simulation itself, so now it will separate the tutorial. So I will save this, save as. Let's see, tutorial 002, why not, save blend file, because now I will do it with the modifier method, with just the modifiers. Later I will come back to this saved file and do the same thing with the animation nodes. So for the modifier method, first thing first is this method is actually lightning fast, is the faster method. It's definitely easier to set up. You just go to add modifier to the leaf and choose particle instance. Move it to the top, because we want all these other generator modifiers to be applied after that, after the deformation. And all you need to make sure for this modifier is the direction. As I said, it should be the positive y-axis. Okay, we have that. So we can choose the alpha surface with our hair particles. The particle system is the first. It doesn't really matter because we have on the alpha surface only one particle system. Back to the leaf, modifiers, and create from normal particles, children, size. This normal is not direction, it's meant to be just normal particles, just without children. We want to affect the size of the particles. Okay, we can see where they are, but I would like the particles be deformed by the curves of the hairs, individual hairs. So I just check this create along path, and you can see we are pretty much done. All we have to do now is to make sure that they are not that thin, because now you can see it's pretty much strands, not leaves, but it's all a matter of the size of the particles itself. So just jump to the particle settings on alpha surface. Let's find out renderer. No, not renderer. We will have to change it, I think, in physics. Here in size, you can see it's grayed out. It's unfortunate for us. So we will have to free the bake, and now we can change the size. And you can see in the model what it does. It actually creates the leaves as they should be, and we will just have to rebake the animation, and we are pretty much done. It's kind of all you can do for now, and you have the effect. And this is actually the way I did this animation, with just more particles. Pros of this method is definitely the speed. You just create one modifier and you are done. but you will end up with just one object, with one leaf that is generated like this, and you have pretty much no control over it. You have these three axes of the rotation, and it's all. You can't control anything individually for the leaves. For example, random materials for each object. So for this to be more flexible, I think it's better to use the animation nodes. So from this point, we will go right to the render part, which will be same for the animation nodes. You can find all the times in the description where every part of this tutorial starts. So you can go right there, and I will just scrap this and go back to the saved file and do the same thing or very similar thing with animation nodes from now on. Okay, we will not have to rebake the simulation. We have everything prepared. We have the leaf, we have the hairs. We will just need one curve object, and I will explain it after a while. Just Bezier curve. I will just name it curve, so we know this is just a curve. And let's jump to the node editor, to the animation nodes. And this will be possible only with animation nodes 2.0. Download is of course in the description. You can download it, because we will use some new nodes that aren't in the previous version. So here, new node 3. This will be our leaves, and as always, we don't need always execution, just when something is changed. And what we need is the curves of the particles itself. So here, select particle system, hair data. It's the new node that it's not in previous version, so you cannot do it without the animation nodes 2.0. And it will take some particle system, preferably the hair particle system, and it will output all the splines that are the hairs. And that's good for us, because I would like to take this leaf, duplicate it as many times as there are hairs, and put a curve modifier on it. Move it up there, and the curve modifier will deform the leaf for us. And that's exactly what I want, but I cannot place there the hairs, the particle system. I have to place there the one curve for this one object. And let's set the deformation right now, where when we are here, because we want the deformation to be along the y-axis, because that's the direction of our leaf. And select the curve that will become later the deformation curve, and in this here in the settings, set here path curve deform, and the radius is checked up. That's good. And let's check the stretch as well. So the leaf will change also its length. Let's see it, what it will do right now. If I pick the curve, you can see that if the curve doesn't have this stretch checked, it will be always the same length. But if I have this stretch, I can change the length of the curve, and it will stretch the mesh itself. And that's good for us, because we then can randomize this length later. Okay, so we are set, everything is prepared. So back to the node editor, we need definitely the particle system. So from object here, and select the alpha surface. This is where our particle system is. We need just active, because there is only one, so it doesn't really matter. And now we have all these splines. But if we will go to the spline and object output, you can see that it will take all these splines and create just one object. and this is not what we want. We want really a different object for each one strand of hair. So we will have to do this with loop. And just for clarity reasons, I will do this loop in a separate node tree. So just hit this plus, it will create a new node tree. We don't need any execution at all. We will use it something like groups in the cycles shader editor. Name it how, like objects from splines. And this loop will, here it will be subprograms loop, and this loop will take some objects. It will take all the curves that we will create, so object list, and change this object data to some splines, but because this is loop, it will change each object individually to each spline. I am pretty sure this is confusing right now, but it will make sense after a while. So we will just have object and splines, and we will make sure object output, spline object output, that each object will have its own spline here applied. This is all this loop will do. There is nothing more that we will create here. So we can come back to our leaves and just use this loop. Here's subprogram my loop. Well, I should name it somehow. Subprogram my loop here. If I want to quickly go to the setting of this loop, I will just select it and hit tab, and I am inside the loop. I will name it, well, spline apply, hit tab again. I am back here. So I can apply all these spline individually to some objects. And where I will get all these objects? Well, with duplication of this curve. Well, duplication is object instancer. Here it is. And I will instantiate the curve. And how many times? Well, the same times as there are this splines or the particles. So here it will create no get length. So I have the how many of these splines are there, and that many times I will duplicate the curve. And I can place this object list, and the curve will move somewhere. You can see that it just applied to one strand at a time. And that's because we are not creating the deep copy, and that means that the object of the curve and all its instances share the same data. You can see here, if you select the curve, Bezier curve is the data of it's the spline that drives the shape, and it's used 641 times. So all these curves are using just this one strand of the hair. It's the last one, I think, from the ID perspective. So if I will use the deep copy, it means that each curve will have its own origin, and you can see, well, you probably not really, but now all these strands have its own curve, and you can see that the Bezier curve doesn't have any more users right now. If I go to the alpha surface, back to the particle settings, and set the render to none, so I will not see the particle system, I can see I can still see the hairs, but now it's just individual curves. I can select one every time, and they are still following the shape of the hairs. So if I play the animation, these individual curves are changing the shape accordingly to the simulation. And this is exactly what we need. So we are pretty much done with curves. We need to just duplicate the leaf as many times. So you probably already know how to do it. Object instancer, and we want the leaf, where it is, leaf, and how many times? Well, it's easy, the same times as the curves. So now we have same number of leaves and same number of curves. And for this leaf, we don't need deep copy. We want it to share all the data, but we want full object copy full object, because we want all the leaves, all the instances of that leaf to have the same modifiers. So if we go here to the modifiers, we want this to be copied as well to all the leaves. And now, where is our leaf? It's somewhere here. It doesn't really matter. We will just get rid of it from the view and from the render. But we need to make sure that all the leaves have its own curve here. Not right now, all the leaves share one curve. So we will need to change this to another objects, and we will do it with the animation nodes as well. So here, object attribute output, and the attribute is this place here. So copy data path, place it here, Ctrl V. And what object? Well, the object is the leaf. So all the leaves here. It automatically pick that this is more objects, so I can check multiple values. And what are those values? Well, the object curves. So, or the curved object. So here. And you can see now every leaf, if I select it, has its own curve to be deformed by. You can play animation a little bit and you can see it work. Well, the rotation is kind of off. You can see the leaves are facing the Z direction, but you can simply change it here with the leaf, where is one of them, to the edit mode, and rotate it along the y-axis by 90 degrees, back to object mode, and now it's right. But you can see it's pretty thin. It would be nice to have larger, and we don't need to rebake the particles on the alpha surface. We can just modify this spline a little. So move it here, and here is the line, is the spline that that controls our modifiers. So if you go here and spline and set the radius, we can change the radiuses of all these spline at once. And as before, we are actually done with the simulation. What is actually pros and cons of this method? First, the cons. You can see that this is definitely much more complicated than the modifier settings. It takes much longer time, but the pros, why would we use such a method? Well, it's definitely more flexible after the settings, because we have now prepared our node tree, and if we decide we want something to be changed, we can simply change it here, and we can change it individually for all the leaves. So if we pick just another loop and create different lengths or different sizes, we can do it. And we also can do it for all the leaves at once. So for example, where is some leaf, like the first one. Let's say we would like to make them more thick, so we would like to change this value, but because it's individual objects, when I change this value, it's change it for only one object. Well, I can do it by changing the value, select all the leaves, and then you can right click and copy to selected, and it will redistribute this value to all the selected objects. But that's not definitely not that practical. So I think a much better method would be use the animation nodes again. Just add another attribute output. What attribute? Well, here, copy data path, Ctrl V, from this object, of course, not multiple values, it will share the same value for all the leaves. And where it is, number, float, and we can put some float here. And you can see I'm changing these values for all the leaves at once. And it's nice and easy. So again, animation nodes definitely harder and more complicated to set up. But I believe it's definitely more beneficial after if it is set it up. Because you can reuse it for another effects, and you have definitely more control overall. Well, and it's pretty much all for both these methods. So from now on, just setting the materials, lighting, and render, of course. So pick just one frame that could be nice to see. Get rid of the original curve and leaf. Well, this is weird pose, something like this. Why not? And create camera. Choose some nice angle to see. With Ctrl F you can control the camera as in first person shooter. I think this could be interesting, framing of this image. Well, add some plane, and for the background I will just use one sphere. So Ctrl A, mesh, for example, rounded cube, scale it a lot. In edit mode, flip the normals to the inside and add subdivision surface so it's more spherical with shade smooth. Where am I? Shade smooth, solid. The plane much bigger, and the sphere or the rounded cube will not affect the rest of the render. So in the object settings I will set it where it is, cycles properties, cycle settings, and turn off everything but the camera. So let's see, rendered. Okay, we will light it only with the world as always, because it's just easier to do. So here, world settings, Ctrl T, prepare everything as always, converter math, multiply twice, and select some nice environment HDR, like this. Why not? Well, let's try to rotate it a little bit. I think it's not that too bad. Okay, material of the rounded cube, new, still the dielectric, because I'm still not in the official 2.79, where is principal shader. I would probably use the principal shader there. Let's change the color a little bit, roughness, reflectivity, just to get nice. It's not really a gradient, but the spherical shape creates some nice one colored background. The ground, something with reflections, definitely. So again, dielectric, but with a little bit of roughness. and color could be something. It could be interesting. This definitely not. Let's try something very dark and rough. Okay, this doesn't really matter, you can play with it as you want. Only kind of interesting thing is the material of the leaves, when where we will use the dielectric again. But as the color, we will use the texture, image texture, and we already have opened this, where it is, this tropical leaf for our unwrapping. So we will use this leaf. Here you can see it's kind of dark, so I will use color, hue, saturation and value, and change the value to 2. That basically means that it reflects twice as much light as it hits. Some roughness, of course, it's just leaves. And because we are continuing from the animation nodes method, we have individual leaves, and that means we can use input object info, where it is, object info, and a random input, and multiply with it or somehow edit the color with it. Because if we see the random input, we have random value for each individual leaf. So we can select, for example, color mix, multiply, and multiply it with this random value. Let's see how it will look. Not necessarily too obvious, but it's there. You can even change something very rapidly with putting the random to hue value, and you will get something like a parrot. Now we can make it even more light with color RGB curves, for example. Let's put it there, and we have something interesting. Next thing would be just set the depth of field for the camera, focus on alpha surface, and aperture something really low, so we will get blurred this line between the sphere and the plane, so maybe even lower. And it's pretty much all. Just turn on the motion blur, it could be lower than 0.5, and hit the render, and you could have a pretty nice animation at the end. If you would just track the camera or put some motion to the camera, it would be probably even better. But the main part is already long behind us. It was the creation of the leaves. You've seen how you can do it really lightning fast with just one modifier, but you lost pretty much all control over it. You just have to believe that the modifier will do its job and it's done. Or you can take your time and create it with animation nodes, and you will get all the flexibility and more options at the end. And it's probably more universal to just not use it for something like leaves, but for whatever it's in your mind. Well, I definitely thank you for watching very much. I hope it was interesting or useful for you. And if you have any suggestions, comments, anything, put it right below this video. And it's all from me, so till the next time, bye.